Welcome to all of our Becoming Your Best podcast listeners, wherever you may be in the world today. This is Steve Schallenberger, your host, and so excited with the guests that we have today. In his career, he has achieved many honors and awards, including being named Ernst & Young's Entrepreneur of the Year in 2017 and Glassdoor's Top CEOs List 2021 with a 98% approval rating. He's also an in-demand speaker at national leadership conferences, entrepreneurial, motivational conferences, and another one of his notable achievements is being appointed as one of the most admired CEOs in the Dallas Business Journal 2023 list. Welcome, Dr. Sulman. Ahmed.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on your show.
I've been looking forward to this. You have such a wonderful perspective. What a journey that you've taken. And so before we get started today, I'll tell you just a bit more about Dr. Ahmed. He's the author of a forthcoming book, Make Them Smile, and Why Customer Satisfaction is the Key to Rapid and Sustainable Growth. It'll be fun talking about his journey and doing that. He's the founder, chairman, and CEO of Decadental, and the influential leader shaping and motivating Decadental's growth strategy and culture, which we're going to talk about. So let's start off, if you don't mind, Sulman, just telling us a little bit about yourself, about your background, and any turning points in your life that's had a significant impact on you.
Yeah, I would love to. Again, thanks for having me on the show. So I was born and grew up in a country called Rhodesia, which is now Zimbabwe, and I lived there till I was 19, and then came to the U.S. to pursue my college level education, and really, I guess, pursuing the American dream, but not really realizing it at that young age. And so moved here, ended up finishing college, going to dental school, and just a series of events that led from one thing to another and ultimately, became part of my overall journey and decision making. But one of the life kind of shaping events, as I always talk about, was when I first moved here. I was so homesick. I was an 18-year-old boy who I ended up in Jacksonville, Florida. And that's a whole separate story that I share a lot about in the book. It's actually a pretty funny story on how carelessly I chose a college just because you don't really know or understand the different rankings and all of those things. But long story short, there was a point about a week into being in Jacksonville where I called my dad back, and to do that, I had to go to payphone. I had to get a calling card, scratch off, and it had a unique pin for those of us who were around at that time would remember. So it wasn't as easy as today. And I was so homesick. I didn't have a car. Jacksonville was an area where there's no public transportation, so you had to just eat what was on campus. And I got tired of eating Subway and Pizza Hut, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And so I told him I just wanted to come back. And he, at that time, which must have been hard for him too, 18, 19 hours flying away. He just told me, look, you're already out there. Think of it as a vacation for the next 3 weeks, and then if you still don't like it, just come back. Don't worry about it. And that took so much pressure off of me because I was trying to create all these things in my head of how I was going to live and how I was going to survive. And is this the life I want? And I miss my siblings and all my friends, and I don't know anybody here. And, so many things are just culturally so different. But as I look back at that one example, I think I apply that to a lot of things in life where at times we just feel like I can't make it, or I'm just in this situation, I'm never going to get out of that. And, just either just slowing down or just having a different perspective and just saying, look, I just need to get through the next week, and then the next week or the next day. And there's multiple times that's happened. When I first started my first dental office, I decided to do things a little differently in terms of, a lot of the dental industry is merger acquisition based. It's a roll-up strategy. I wanted to build offices from scratch where, we identified a site. It was a retail healthcare kind of concept. I looked at Starbucks, Walgreens, CVS, and It's like, I want to create the Starbucks of dentistry. I want great retail locations in great neighborhoods that people drive by, and I want it to be branded, and Ideal Dental became that brand. And I want people to identify that brand with, standardization, consistency, quality. I wanted to be open 6 days a week, which was unheard of in the dental space at that time, because I felt like patients have dental needs 7 days a week. So how could we just be a 4-day-a-week model, which is what a lot of dentistry was, and probably still is to this day. And I wanted them to be able to get all services, not just general dentistry. I wanted, people to come in on a Saturday with their daughter to get their cleaning done while their daughter got their braces adjusted. So those basic things kicked off the company. And then there's been tons of trials and tribulations along the way. Fast forward, we're almost at 200 locations in 9 states. It's been a lot of fun, a lot of growth, a lot of people, a lot of learnings, a lot of humbling experiences, and a lot of achievements.
Well, that's quite a journey. Way to go, Sulman.
Thank you.
Well, tell us a little bit about your book. It's coming out here soon, and give us a little feel for the journey, what's in it. And I'm glad you talked a little bit about the number of locations that you have. You have how many locations?
Just under 200.
Yeah. So that's fabulous. Is that your vision and what your end vision? And so kind of, yeah, let's get into it here.
Yeah, I think I'll kick it off with where you started. The book itself is, I started writing it as a diary to my kids so that they would understand how my life got to where it was. And I started that after COVID, and it wasn't supposed to be published. And I would start and stop. And over the course of the last 10 years, I've had a lot of business people, just reach out for advice and be like, hey, I've seen you grown to 20, 30, 40, 50. I'm at 2 locations. A lot of them were not even dental businesses. It was just business people, entrepreneurs, and who either felt inspired or felt like they could reach out and I could relate to them. And so they're like, how do I fund from here to here? Or how do I know it's time to grow? Or how do I hire a CFO? So I had all these, I would like to call them like playbooks or, details of how to build a business and a business plan. And so I had all this information in different spots. And really, I went through so many dark points in my journey where like you either don't have any money or you feel like you're not going to make it. And I feel like in today's world, everyone's looking for that instant gratification, be it social media where we all just see the best. And, in the book I share, that it takes 10 years of being good every day to become great eventually. So there's not really like, man, I've been doing this for a month. Why am I not seeing change? And so the book really is a how-to. It shares my personal journey, which was hard because I felt like to be able to relate and help people, I had to be pretty transparent and vulnerable. So I share a lot of details of numbers and finances in the hope that it inspires people who are maybe not in that situation, maybe in a better situation. Like, if he's done it, I should absolutely be going for it. So I figured if I can change one such life, I would have achieved, the goal of the book. And then it just became like a business book on how to, at each step of the business, what to expect and how to kind of take the next step and what are some of the roadblocks and obstacles and how to overcome those. And then I think it also goes to like when you kind of reach that point where you feel like, you've achieved everything you've set out, to achieve, or the top of the mountain, like what that feels like and how your life changes. And, for me, when I built the business, it was all around the customer and the guests and how do we make sure our patients are really, really happy. And as I grew into a leader and our company got bigger and we had all these employees and dentists and specialists working, it almost became like, okay, how do I take care of my people? And so it went from, trying to provide for customers to how do I give back? And so I share a little bit about that in my journey.
Oh, thanks for the overview. And sometimes we hear people say, oh man, look at that company, look at that organization. They just overnight success.
Yeah, right.
But usually it couldn't be further from the truth, because behind that are, like you said, a decade of sometimes just scratching it out and struggling and wondering if you would ever make it. And then all of a sudden you turn around and you're at a better place. And and people start recognizing that, what's some of the maybe early challenges or an early challenge you had that would be an example of how you overcame kind of a tough situation? You weren't maybe even sure if you might make it, and
Yeah.
you turned it around and ended up in, do you have an example like that?
Yeah, lots of examples. I think there's a couple of chapters in the book. You know, my first chapter is having a grand vision, and just, you know, instead of the day to day, you've got to have like this goal or this vision. You kind of keep reminding yourself when you're going through the struggles. And then, you know, one chapter is mastering your craft. So I think what the point of all of that is, like, you know, no matter what your business is, to take it to the next level, there's certain requirements. You got to be really good as a dentist and understand the ins and outs of how that business runs, not just from a clinical standpoint, but from dealing with insurance companies, reimbursements, training, all of that. But you know, one of the early struggles was dentistry's been around for a very long time, but you know, dentists did not want to work Fridays and Saturdays. So that was probably the first struggle as you're trying to scale. So you're pretty much working in the first 2, 3 offices 6 days a week. So that was a little bit of a cultural mind shift in, you know, the dentist trying to understand, like, this is better for patients, not best just always what's best for me. So you're actually helping people. And that's, it has to be like a cultural change on why you're doing it versus like, well, what's in it for me? So that was probably one of the early challenges. And I think another challenge, which is probably common to a lot, is, you know, funding your growth. You can have a great idea and you can take it from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. But if your vision's like to take it to 25 or 30 locations, how do you kind of fund that? How do you get past like personally paying for everything? And, you know, how do you go beyond that point?
Yeah. You know, at some point, are you still practicing occasionally dentistry or?
Yeah, every now and then, but honestly, like the last 10 or so years, I've just been managing and helping grow the vision and trying to impact more lives.
Yeah. At what time, Sulman, did you realize that it was necessary
Yeah.
to transition from working in the business? There's always that moment, right? To
Yeah.
focusing on the
Yep.
business as a CEO, as a key leader, so that you can develop a
Yeah. It's
consistent, sustainable growth and success.
Yeah, I think it's funny for us specialized kind of professionals, right? We think a lot of our value is when we're with the patient and no one else can kind of do that. And so I had the same kind of concept where I'm not practicing, then, you know, we're losing on the vision and the goal, and patients are going to be happy. And it was probably furthest from the truth, because my business started taking off, you know, the less I was practicing. So it was a 6-day, 5-day, 4-day, 3-day practicing. On the other days, I was looking at new sites and building the business and putting the tools together to manage it and the training. So it was probably, you know, December 2008, right before that recession. Around that time was when I started my first location. In 2012, 2013 was where I started completely almost being out of the business and focusing on building, you know, the business. So it was a good, you know, as a dentist, that was like about an 8-year run. I graduated in 2005, doing a lot of dentistry in that time.
Yeah, so leadership is so crucial, isn't it? To
It
having
is.
a successful team and organization. It's one of those extraordinary skills that can lift everything. And so, what are some of the most important leadership skills that you've identified that are important that contribute to a successful life and successful team and organization?
Yeah, I think, you know, leadership evolves with time as you know, because you're put into a leadership position and then you learn how to be a leader, and over time your ability kind of grows with experience. And I think there's no real substitute for that, or no shortcuts to that. You know, I would say early on it was leading by example. So, you know, showing up early, staying late, putting in the work just so staff could kind of see it. And I think over time, I would say transparency and being vulnerable, like, you know, just being able to share, like, hey, I don't know, or we're really not doing good, or I really don't know how to get from here to here, so I'm seeking help. Um, I think those are traits that have helped a lot, because it breaks down a lot of barriers. And I think for the people in the company, it also makes them feel like I'm also human, you know, and I think that builds the ability to connect.
What are some of the most important leadership lessons you've learned?
Yeah, I think just because you're successful at a certain time, I think over a period of time, there's a lot of ups and downs. And I think, learning when you're in the downs and being humble when you're going up, I think that's probably the most important lesson I've learned, because nothing good or bad lasts forever.
Okay, that's a good one. Yeah, just stay steady and work
Yep.
the problem, and
Yep.
and when it's going great, appreciate it and have gratitude and say, how do we sustain it, right?
Yeah, and I think also the measure, right, of success, because you could measure it on customer satisfaction, you could measure it on revenue, on profit. I don't know, as a visionary, like, and as a leader, your goal should be, are you making the company better every day and making people's lives better, whether it's your patients or your own staff. So I think that's the ultimate goal. Sometimes all of that translates into a great quarter, and sometimes it doesn't. But as long as you're kind of moving in the right direction, as a leader, I think you've got to be able to time out and take a step back and just look at the bigger impact.
Good. I like that approach. That's really excellent. That thought, that mindset. One of the ways that we describe it, that's been a long time theme, decade over decade, is just this thought is to maintain real growth year after year after year. And if you're thinking that way, it helps unleash all the possibilities that you have. Just maintain real growth. That's it. We'll do it. And a lot of good things have to happen. Like you say, you have to take care of your associates, your employees. They want to be there. They want to be growing, but also having a vision. And how do we do this? It's sustainable. So great job. How important is it to take this whole thing in terms of take it personally in business? Like, personal responsibility. What does that mean to you?
I write in my book, if it matters enough to you, it becomes personal. So everything is personal, especially if you're like the founder of a legacy kind of business. It is every negative review, every employee that left because we dropped the ball in something. All of that is personal. Every single day, it's, you want to get in and fix it, versus, some positions are hired kind of positions, and it's like a temporary thing. For someone who's built a business, this is their life. So taking things personally, I think, is key. And that becomes a struggle, because as the company gets bigger and bigger and bigger, you have so many people, and not everybody takes it personally. So how do you kind of evoke and inspire, what's important to you as a company, as a leader, where, everyone can kind of feel excited about it too, and make it somewhat personal for each person.
Okay, yeah. So, building a legacy while achieving business success really is a balance. And you don't want to lose sight of having a successful business, which enables being able to have a long-term legacy. How do you envision your legacy, both within the dental industry and in the community that you serve, and with your family?
Yeah. No, I think you hit on the last point, is really, really important. I think family is also part of our legacy, and personal, professional, like it all kind of interrelates at some time. And in the book, I talk a little bit about this concept of work-life balance, and how in order to achieve greatness, and sometimes that balance is going to be skewed one way or another, and that's okay. But I think leaving a legacy, whether it's in dental or just within the company, I think it's setting forth the values and putting the company on a trajectory where the DNA and the core and the foundation is laid out so heavily. And then you've brought in certain key people that have worked alongside you for a long time, that you then entrust with carrying out that vision over time, because it's inevitable at some point, like, there's going to be better people, or you've taken the company as far as you want to, or you can, like one of the two. And at that time, I think as long as the fundamentals and the core stay stable, I think you can find a different role. Maybe it's not as CEO, maybe you're on the board or chairing it and still, involved with the company, but in a different capacity. Because what ends up happening, your ability to impact more and more opportunities come around that, right? So whether that's working with charities to do free dental, or and your passions start growing. For me, it's helping more dentists, one, have fun and be great clinicians, but also have a wealth creation opportunity. How do I kind of show them that? That's something I'm passionate about. And then other things that happen in dentistry, when you think about the mouth and oral care and solutions and products, like that's another area that's fascinating to me. So your kind of core competency grows. You get other people to carry on your legacy because they love it and they believe in it. And then you find other things that inspire that creative, part of your brain that ultimately gives back to everybody associated with what you originally built.
Thank you so much for that perspective, and it's inspirational, really, and it's right at the heart of creating, maintaining real growth year after year and creating a legacy, is when others engage with you that share the passion, and people that are great leaders with you. And someday you and I are going to be gone.
Right.
And to be able to see that continue to serve other people, to create value for years to come, to make the world a better place, to help people have better lives, that's pretty exciting, and that's a key part of it. A key part of leadership is creating that kind of a vision, and also identifying core values that help make you great. What are your vision? What's your vision? And then what are some of the values you work by?
Yeah, I think the vision for me is to make this a national dental household name. So in other words, wherever you live in the country, if you have a toothache or someone has a toothache and it's a Saturday, for you to naturally think, oh, go to Ideal Dental. I know they're open, or I know they do great work. So that would be kind of the vision.
Okay, how about your core values?
And my core values are, I think the integrity is probably number one. Anyone I work with, I think their heart's got to be in the right place. And I think we think of that in terms of also dentists doing work in a patient's mouth. You got to make sure you're doing good work, because the patient doesn't always know. And then I think the other kind of, so funnily, ideal, each letter is one of the core values. So I is for integrity, and the L is actually for loyalty. And over time, that's become a very important core value. I'm very loyal to my key people who've demonstrated, their trust and time with me, maybe to a fault. But I also expect loyalty back from people that I care about. And, that's usually, it's earned over time. But those integrity and loyalty are very important to me.
And the DEA, ideal?
Yeah. Well, each one is separate, so you would have to read the book to kind of learn that. But the D's for discipline, and I spell out and talk about each one in detail in the book.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's fun. Well, it's been a great visit. You're
Thank
inspirational.
you.
You've
Yeah.
done great. I mean, make them smile, have a fun new book, and that'll be fun. I can see it now sitting on the counters, the little tabletops in your waiting rooms and all of your shops, and you're changing a lot of the approach in your field. So congratulations on that. Well done.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I really, really enjoyed this, and look forward to getting the book out and seeing what people think.
Okay, so any final tips you'd like to leave with our listeners today?
I think the biggest one is, we all have a good gut sense as a leader, on what you should be doing or shouldn't be doing. One, trust that. And then two, just be patient. Let things kind of happen. If you're putting in the work every single day and you're showing up and you're executing and you're disciplined, just give it time, and it'll people just want things to happen too quickly, and it just doesn't work that way. Just be patient. You're going to go through your trials and tribulations, but stick with your gut feeling and be patient enough to ride it out, and success will come your way.
Well, that's good advice. So how can people find out about what you're doing, Sulman?
Yeah, you can follow me on LinkedIn. I've got a large number of followers there. And then, I think the book, will be available everywhere, Barnes and Noble to, Apple, wherever books are sold, including the audio versions and Audible. So, read about that, and, please reach out to me through LinkedIn, and and I'd love to hear from you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being a
Great.
guest, and we wish you the best.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Okay. And to all of our listeners, we've loved having you tune in today to join us. It always makes such a difference. We wish you the best as you're gaining new ideas, thinking about how to become your best. I love a lot of the messages that we've heard today. They've been encouraging and hopeful, and we wish you a great day. This is Steve Schallenberger, your host, signing off.